Hello, everyone. I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And, God damn it, that is annoying when you do that.
I'm Jake.
No, just say it like a person.
And I'm Jake.
Oh, fuck you. And this is the Bible Reloaded. So, thanks everyone for tuning in. Last time what happened was Saul was made king, and Saul rescued them from the Philistines as the new king. And that's about it. And they're all like, yay, Saul!
Yeah.
And I presume Samuel sat in a corner looking suspiciously like, I don't know how well this is going to turn out, guys.
Yeah. And if you remember, Samuel's like, hey, you shouldn't ask for a king, because that's bad. You don't want kings, because God's good enough, right?
Right? Anyway.
Yeah. And then in chapter 12, which we're going to summarize, Samuel basically explains after the fact, like, hey, you should have listened to me. And he starts out with, hey guys, I've never steered you wrong, right? Good old Sammy. I always got your back, Jews. And then they're like, yeah, I guess you're right. You've been pretty cool to us. And he's like, well, let me tell you something. This guy is a loser.
Which is weird that he says this after he helps Israel defeat their enemies. It seems like literally the opposite should be happening, but for some reason Samuel is just completely against it.
Yeah. So basically he's like, don't worry. He'll be taken out pretty soon.
Which is kind of a shitty thing to say to the king, because as a king you think he'd be like, you're fucking up, Samuel. Don't say this shit.
Off with his head.
Anyway, so we start in 1 Samuel chapter 13. Samuel rebukes Saul. Saul was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned over Israel 42 years. Saul chose 3,000 men from Israel. 2,000 were with him at Michmash, in the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan at Gibeah in Benjamin. Jonathan attacked the Philistines' outpost at Geba, and the Philistines heard about it. I'd assume so, since they're the ones that were attacked. Then Saul had the trumpet blown throughout the land and said, let the Hebrews hear. So all the Israel heard the news. Saul had attacked the Philistine outpost, and now Israel had become obnoxious to the Philistines, even though they had been at war already, so it's not like it's a new thing. And the people were summoned to join Saul at Gilgal.
So they mentioned Jonathan here, and I don't think, have they ever mentioned him before?
You know, he's just Jonathan.
He's Saul's son.
Just Jonathan.
And he does bad things later.
The Philistines assembled to fight Israel with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They went up and camped at Michmash, east of Beth-aven. When the Israelites saw their situation was critical, and that their enemy was hard-pressed, they hid in caves and thickets, among the rocks, and in the pits of cisterns. So these warriors, with their chariots and weapons, were like, oh shit, we're gonna have to fight people? Ooh, don't really think I was prepared for that. And they all hid in caves and stuff, kind of like Saddam Hussein in his hidey hole. Gonna smoke him out his hidey hole.
Hidey hole.
Saul remained at Gilgal, and all the troops with him were quaking with fear. They're the shittiest troops, apparently. Even though they've won most battles they've ever been in, they somehow are afraid this time. He waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So he said, bring me the burnt offering and fellowship offerings. And Saul offered up the burnt offering. Just as he had finished the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. This is important because they're waiting for Samuel to come and offer the burnt offering because he's the high priest of Israel.
Yeah, and that's just like one job.
Saul is not allowed to do this because he's not a high priest, and he's also not one of the Levites who are the priest class, let's say.
Yeah, like a Brahmin.
Yeah, so he done fucked up.
Yeah, and Samuel gets real mad and sore about it if he take his only job, because he really looks forward to burning meat for a living.
What have you done? Asked Samuel. Presumably Saul was like, did your fucking job, asshole. Saul replied, when I saw the men were scattering, and that you did not come at the set time, and that the Philistines were assembling at Michmash, I thought, now the Philistine will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering. So,
basically, Samuel shows up late, and the boss is like, you know, it's kind of my job to pick up the slack when something goes wrong. So I do that.
Yeah, so Saul, in my opinion, is completely in the right. Why the fuck isn't Samuel showing up for his one job?
Yeah, what does he have to do?
He just burns things. He just burns it. And he probably does, incantations over it.
That's just bullshit.
Yep.
It's a bullshit thing to get mad about.
Verse 13, "You have done a foolish thing," Samuel said. "You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people, because you have not kept the Lord's command."
Wow.
Fucked up once and he loses the kingship.
Well, not even just once. I mean, it's not even a meal. No one's even going to eat it. It's just, he just burned it incorrectly?
Yeah. Then Samuel left Gilgal, and went up to Gibeah in Benjamin, and Saul counted the men who were with him. They numbered about 600.
Well, that doesn't sound like a lot.
Nope. Now, Israel without weapons. Saul and his son Jonathan, remember Jonathan from earlier? And the men with them were staying in Gibeah in Benjamin, while the Philistines camped at Michmash. Raiding parties went out from Philistine camp in 3 detachments. One turned towards Oprah in the vicinity of Shaul, another toward Beth Horon, and the third towards the borderlands overlooking the valley of Zeboim.
Zeboim!
What the fuck is that?
It's the most Jewish word that's ever been said out aloud.
Zeboim! Zeboim, yeah.
Zeboim!
Zeboim, facing the wilderness. Not a blacksmith could be found in the whole land of Israel, because the Philistines had said, otherwise the Hebrew would make swords and spears. So there are no people who know metallurgy at all, apparently.
No.
So all Israel went down on the Philistines to have their plow points, mattocks, axes, and sickles sharpened. The price was 2/3 of a shekel for sharpening plow points and mattocks, and 1/3 of a shekel for sharpening forks and axes and for repointing goads. So on this day of the battle, not a soldier with Saul and Jonathan had a sword or spear in his hand. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had them. Okay, so let me get this straight. So there is no one in Israel who knows how to craft weapons.
Right.
Not only this, the only people they go to for weapon crafting are the people they are at war with now and have been for a long time.
Apparently. Do you think the hospitality thing runs over and they have to?
I don't know.
It's kind of like an awkward scorched earth policy where they're running away and then they just take the blacksmiths with them and like, haha, now you can't make shit, fuckers.
Can you help me make this sword so I can stab you with it later?
That really seems counterproductive to living.
But apparently the Israelites, even though they've won battles recently, it seems like, why didn't they take weapons from the people they did kill? And also, how did they kill those people in the first place?
Apparently, the only people that ran away were the armed ones, and all the brave ones were the ones that just had their fists.
Yeah. And there are only 2 swords amongst all the Israelites, and Saul and his son have them, apparently.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That is so bad.
Saul's a bad leader. He's like, hey, guys, just come with me. It's okay, just punch him.
He's a really efficient boss, but he's not a very good tactician.
I hope the Philistines don't have any pole arms where they're like, this is really easy, guys. We just spear them. Kind of like fish, but they're people. Chapter 14. Jonathan attacks the Philistines. Now a detachment of Philistines had gone out to the pass at Michmash. One day Jonathan, son of Saul, said to his young armor-bearer, "Come, let's go over to the Philistine outpost on the other side," but he did not tell his father. Saul was staying on the outskirts of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree in Migron. With him were about 600 men. Among those was Ahijah, who was wearing an ephod. He was the son of Ichabod's brother, Ahitub, son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest at Shiloh. No one was aware that Jonathan had left. So all that in there had nothing to do with Jonathan. They're just backstory, apparently.
They're just like, hey, look at all... They're name dropping.
He's related to Eli. See, it's all related, guys, I swear. On each side of the pass that Jonathan had intended to cross to reach the Philistine outpost was a cliff. One was called Bozez and the other Seneh, because the Hebrews just love to name everything, including cliffs.
I didn't know that.
Like, can we name them the same thing? No, one's on one side, one's on the other, so we gotta name them separate
cliffs
things.
Often were named. Is that a thing?
I don't know. One cliff stood to the north toward Michmash, the other to the south toward Geba. Jonathan said to his young armor-bearer, "Come, let's go over to the outpost of these uncircumcised men."
I can see from here that they have big floppy foreskins.
"Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few." So he's like, hey, young kid, come with me to the enemy camp. Maybe the Lord will do something. I'd like to think the kid's like, can we not? I'm like 12.
Except he's all for it.
"Do all that you have in mind," his armor-bearer said. "Go ahead. I am with you, heart and soul."
I think there's some kind of romance.
There gotta be. Jake Gyllenhaal-esque. is how I would describe the armor bearer.
R.I.P. Heath.
Jonathan said, "Come on then, we will cross over toward them and let them see us. If they say to us, 'Wait there until we come to you,' we will stay where we are and not go up to them. But if they say, 'Come up to us,' we will climb up, because that will be our sign that the Lord has given them into our hands."
Wait, what?
So he's saying, if we're going to go let them see us, because I'm the worst strategist in history.
Yeah.
And he's saying, if they say to stay there, we'll stay there. But if they say to come up, we'll go up. And clearly we'll win because they're letting us go up. That doesn't really make sense. I don't see how that follows. People in the Bible seem to make arbitrary rules and then say, like, if this happens, that means God is with us. And then it happens, so they're like, yeah, right? But it's like, no, that wasn't predictive.
Yeah, you had a 50% chance of that working out for you.
Yeah. So both of them showed themselves to the Philistine outpost. "Look," said the Philistines, "the Hebrews are crawling out of the holes where they were hiding in." Ha ha. Solid humor, Philistine man. The men of the outpost shouted to Jonathan, his armor-bearer, "Come up to us, and we'll teach you a lesson."
Ooh.
So Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, "Climb up after me. The Lord has given them into the hand of Israel." Jonathan climbed up, using his hands and feet.
As you do?
Yeah, what else would he have climbed up with?
Grappling hook.
I guess. With his armor-bearer right behind him. The Philistines fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer followed and killed behind him. In the first attack, Jonathan and his armor-bearer killed some 20 men in the area, about half an acre.
So, I'm trying to picture this in my head. The Philistines are on top of a cliff. And they're like,
it's an outpost.
Fuck you, Jonathan. He's like, I'll climb up there. It's like, alright. And they climb up. And then they politely don't attack as they're scaling this flat surface. And then they get murdered.
Yeah, and Jonathan and this other young kid kill everyone somehow. I think it's like Assassin's Creed where only one guard attacks at a time. They all just circle around you.
Or a John Woo film.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah. There's probably no pigeons, though.
I wish there were pigeons. There should be more pigeons in every movie.
Now you need to show one pigeon flight from a John Woo film.
Okay.
Just the slow motion
I'll use the one from Face Off.
Okay. It's a good one.
Look at that. That's from Face Off. Solid film.
Face Off is okay.
Face off. I'm gonna take his face off. Israel routs the Philistines. Then panic struck the whole army, those in the camp and field, and those in the outposts and raiding parties, and the ground shook. It was a panic sent by God. Saul's lookouts at Gibeah and Benjamin saw the army melting away in all directions. Then Saul sent the men who were with him, "Muster the forces, see who has left us." When they did, it was Jonathan and his armor-bearer who were not there. Saul said to Ahijah, "Bring the ark of God." At that time, it was with the Israelites. I like that it's stolen enough that they have to say, no, it was with them at this point. When Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult in the Philistine camp increased more and more, so Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Then Saul and all his men assembled and went into the battlefield. They found the Philistines in total confusion, striking each other with their swords. Those Hebrews who had previously been with the Philistines and had gone up with them to their camp went over to the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. When all the Israelites who had hidden in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were on the run, they joined the battle in hot pursuit. So on the day the Lord saved Israel, and the battle moved on beyond Beth-aven. So what, God made them attack each other?
It says he melted a bunch of them.
No one fucking melted. So apparently God made the Philistines attack each other, which is so confusing to me. Again, we have the free will thing. Also, if God can and is willing to affect people's actions directly, why doesn't he just do it all the time? Literally, the Old Testament God just fucks with shit whenever he wants, seemingly for no reason.
Other than for the lols.
Yeah, and again, you'd have Christians be like, mysterious ways. Like, no, fucker, that's not an answer. I'm not saying you need an answer, but at least admit, I don't know. Don't come up with some vague bullshit to try and explain away the shitty things he's doing in the book. And then today we're going to finish on, what is it? Jonathan eats honey? That sounds like
sexy.
I think it sounds super fucking boring, but you say Jonathan. It's good, so.
No, you gotta say it different. Jonathan eats honey.
Verse 24. Now the Israelites were in distress that day because Saul had bound the people under oath, saying, "Cursed be anyone who eats food before evening comes, before I have avenged myself of my enemies." So none of the troops tasted food.
What an off awful idea. By the way, no nutrition for you. People I need in top shape to fight for me.
You want well-fed troops who are in fit shape to fight. This kind of reminds me of Ramadan, though, which I think is going on right now.
Yay, Ramadan. Allah Akbar, or whatever. Just noticed how actually Islamic Aladdin is.
Yeah.
He says, like, thank Allah, like, a shit ton of times.
Well, it's the Middle
I was
East.
surprised, though.
I don't think you could get Aladdin post 9/11. I think Fox News would have... Imagine if Aladdin came out in, like, 2005. Can you imagine the shit Fox News would have said?
Pro-Islamist propaganda. Robin Williams is a fucking commie.
They literally fucking call, like, Disney movie female protagonists lesbians at this point. That's how much of a joke it's become. Literally.
I don't get it.
They did a whole report on, you know, the movie Brave? It was a...
Oh, yeah.
They were like, this is the one Disney movie I've never seen. Merida, I believe is her name.
Sure.
They're like, is she promoting being a lesbian? If you don't know in the film, even though I haven't seen it, I know it because I know too many things about Disney movies. She just doesn't want to get an arranged marriage. She wants to be able to do what she wants. It's not a fucking... She's not a lesbian. She just doesn't want to be with a man just because that's what their society...
She wants to choose a dicking, not be forced to one.
And by the end of the movie, she doesn't find someone that's okay in the movie. And Fox News takes this as an assault on heterosexuality somehow.
Why do they always have to see what they're doing? Is they're saying, okay, by the way, 2014... we don't have to do gender role stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. We can have a strong female protagonist.
I think they said shit about Frozen, too. I don't know what it was, though. Frozen is a solid Disney movie, though.
It's okay.
Although that song is getting old.
Could have been a lot better.
It could have been, but... Yeah.
Focus on the snowman and the guy with the reindeer, and that's interesting.
I disagree. I think the snowman is
the most interesting part.
The snowman is the worst part of that movie.
Not the snowman.
Moving on.
No, snowman... those two plus snowman... would have been funny, because that guy got raised by gnomes. There's two throwaway scenes, and the second time when he goes back, they're not even like, oh, I remember you, we raised you from infancy. They're like, who's this guy?
No, they know who the guy... You haven't seen that. I've seen that movie more than you, apparently.
They don't even acknowledge him.
Yes, they do.
Barely.
Because they're talking to her because he brought a girl home.
And then they're very surprised at the process in which she's hurt. It's just weird. It's a weird movie.
I feel like you saw a different movie than me. Anyway.
Yeah.
Verse 25. The entire army entered the woods. You know, the woods. And there was honey on the ground.
Just...
How did honey get on the ground?
The beehive fell.
Did the writers of the Bible know where honey comes from?
No.
Bees?
No.
When they went into the woods, they saw the honey oozing out, yet no one put his hands to his mouth because they feared the oath. But Jonathan had not heard his father had bound the people with the oath, so he reached out to the end of the staff that was in his hand and dipped it in the honeycomb. He raised his hand to his mouth and his eyes brightened. Then one of the soldiers told him, "Your father bound the army under a strict oath, saying, 'Cursed be anyone who eats food today.' That is why the men are faint."
So his eyes brightened just means, like, he felt better because he's got more strength back.
Jonathan said, "My father has made trouble for the country. See how many eyes brightened when I tasted a little of this honey? How much better it would have been if the men had eaten today some of the plunder they took from their enemies. Would not the slaughter of the Philistines have been even greater?"
Solid point, John.
He is a completely valid point. And here again we have basically one of the main messages of the Old Testament. It doesn't matter if you're right. It matters if you fucking do what we tell you.
Yeah, just obey and it'll all go well.
That day, after the Israelites had struck down the Philistines from Michmash to Aijalon, they were exhausted. They pounced on the plunder, and taking sheep, cattle, and calves, they butchered them on the ground and ate them, together with the blood.
Whoa, that's a commandment.
I know. Then someone said to Saul, "Look, the men are sinning against the Lord by eating meat that has blood in it."
Holy shit, guys.
"You broke the faith," he said. "Roll a large stone over here at once."
Whoa, is it the beheading stone?
It's just the fucking stone,
No,
man.
fucking calm down, man. Damn it.
Then he said, "Go out amongst the men and tell them, each of you bring me your cattle and sheep and slaughter them here and eat them. Do not sin against the Lord by eating meat with blood still in it."
I love this approach, because normally what happens is they sin against the Lord, then they're either set on fire, swallowed by the earth, or slaughtered where they stand. In this case, they're like, okay, we're going to change what you're doing now because technically it's a sin, but we're going to do the thing that's not a sin now, so we're just going to do it better.
Yeah.
It's okay, though.
So he's correct.
But seriously, don't do it again.
He's correcting them, but he's not killing them.
What that's called is positive reinforcement.
Saul is the most reasonable leader Israel has ever had.
To date, yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of a shitty strategist, but as far as like leadership, good on him.
So everyone brought his ox that night and slaughtered it there. Then Saul built an altar to the Lord. It was the first time he had done this. Saul said, "Let us go down and pursue the Philistines by night and plunder them till dawn, and let us not leave one of them alive." "Do whatever seems best to you," they replied. But the priest said, "Let us inquire of God here." So Saul asked God, "Shall I go down and pursue the Philistines? Will you give them into Israel's hand?" But God did not answer him that day.
Ooh, silent treatment, bitch.
Saul therefore said, "Come here, all of you who are leaders of the army, and let us find out what the sin has been committed today. As surely as the Lord who rescues Israel lives, even if the guilt lies with my son Jonathan, he must die." But not one of them said a word.
Whoa.
That's almost like he knew that he's like, even if it's my son Jonathan. It was, coincidentally
That little
enough.
fucker.
You sound like a written character. Saul then said to all the Israelites, "You stand over there, I and Jonathan my son will stand over here. Do what seems best to you," they replied. Then Saul prayed to the Lord, the God of Israel, "Why have you not answered your servant today? If the fault is in me or my son Jonathan, respond with Urim. But if the men of Israel are at fault, respond with Thummim." Jonathan and Saul were taken by lot, and the men were cleared. Saul said, "Cast the lot between me and Jonathan my son," and Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, "Tell me what you have done." So Jonathan told him, "I tasted a little bit of honey with the end of my staff, and now I must die." Jesus, kid. Saul said, "May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if you do not die, Jonathan."
So Saul went from pretty reasonable to like kind of weird.
Yeah. But the men said to Saul, "Should Jonathan die, he who has brought about this great deliverance in Israel? Never, as surely as the Lord lives, not a hair on his head will fall to the ground. For he did this today with God's help." So the men rescued Jonathan, and he was not put to death.
How many of you fucking saw that shit
I
coming?
know, God didn't kill someone. That's
That's
crazy.
nuts.
Then Saul stopped pursuing the Philistines, and they withdrew from their own land. After Saul had assumed the role over Israel, he fought against their enemies on every side: Moab, the Amorites, Edom, the kings of Zobah, and the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he inflicted punishment on them. He fought valiantly and defeated the Amalekites, delivering Israel from the hands of those who had plundered them. It seems like he's looking for wars, to be completely honest.
Yeah, but that's pretty standard with a leader of Israel.
That's true. So yeah, I guess that's it for this episode. Thanks everyone for watching.
Wow.
What?
Just ripping that Band-Aid off, aren't you?
Yeah, just fuck everyone.
All right.
If you want, you can donate to our Patreon. That'd be really great.
Yeah, we're pretty close to our $400. Our goal is $500, and then this can be our full-time job, which would be amazing.
You get more episodes and shit.
So thank you, everyone that's done that so far.
Yep.
You can go ahead.
You can follow us on Twitter at Bible Reloaded or at Hugo Reloaded.
Yeah, those are our accounts that you can follow and listen to us talk about things and post shitty memes.
You can retweet us, and I'll retweet you and probably send you some dick pics. Unsolicited, because I anticipate your dick pic needs.
Yeah, he's good like that. He's a good follow.
Other than that, I think that's it for today. Next time we'll probably get to where Saul is no longer the king of Israel.
Yay!
So until next time, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
This has been The Bible Reloaded. Next week, I dip my staff into Jake's honeycomb to see if I can find some honey.